Well, I'm not sure if I should be making this or not. But I thought I'd give it a try. There's been a lot of news lately, flash news around the world in seconds, about residential schools and graves and coffins and on and on and on and on and on and on, and all painting a very dark picture. But if you take those stories and you boil them all down, it comes to this. They think with their ground radar they have found disturbances in the soil that resemble that of a coffin in a graveyard. As an Indian chief said, what's the big deal? You think there's coffins in a graveyard. And so, those graveyards have been known about for 100 years. Maybe they weren't kept up, but of course there's bodies buried in them. And of course some of them will be children, but they haven't proved any of that. It was just, there appears to be a soil disturbance that's similar to that which a coffin would make. That's all the facts they have. And yet they've blown it up like a giant balloon and rolled it down the hill, and it took off and got a life of its own. Why? What's the point of that? This is an Indian chief saying, so they think they found coffins in a graveyard. What's the big deal? What's the big deal? Now, it's true that residential schools are a really bad idea. You can't impose Roman theology and ways of life upon children of a whole different culture. Innocent children of a whole different culture, and you're coming at them with all this gobbledygook. Good that they got to read and write. That's good. That was the government's problem. There were all these people that couldn't read and write. So we gotta fix that problem. And the Catholic Church came along and said, "Well, we'll handle it." And the government said, "Oh, great, okay," and they were done with it. Problem solved. Not very good stewardship, but I can see why they did it. But to let those people come and impose their way upon them, it just doesn't work. You can't impose a Martian theology on Indian children. It doesn't work. And it was no different. It was really strange stuff they were teaching. And they had these men that weren't allowed to marry, and women in these funny costumes. I think it's weird. I think it's very weird. And a truck's going to come and interrupt our conversation. Hopefully he's not going to stop. He's just going to shoot right by. Well, I'd probably wave because that's the right thing to do. So you can't impose on them your way of life. You just can't do that. Not on anybody. You can invite them to join your way of life and give them good reasons why. That's perfectly valid. But the gobbledygook that they carried with them and taught that as, it's really sad. But that's not the idea of this tape or video. That was the preamble. The tape is, I grew up under the Roman Catholic system, right from when I was a baby until about age of 15, I guess. And I'm thankful for one thing. They taught me about God being the creator, about Him being all powerful, about Him being all knowing, and Him being everywhere. And I'm really thankful for that. That's a good basis on which to build. The fact that Jesus died and took away our sin, that we could be free, I don't think they ever taught that. They taught a bunch of other weird, hokey-pokey, man-made stuff. Man-made tradition. And it does not have my respect then, and it does not have my respect today. But I'll just leave that, because for the people in the Roman system, their relationship with Jesus is between them and Jesus. It has nothing to do with me. So I will just leave that alone. But I will go to my grade school. And grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, grade 4, grade 5. Grade 5. We had a teacher, Mr. Brian O'Neill. And he liked other males. He did. In particular, he liked young boys. And for an entire year, he had his way with our class. Short version, he took us into the teacher's room privately for oral French lessons. And he played with us. Often. Well, he had a whole year to do it. And he had a good cover, too. He would go out on the weekends, and he would have field trips, and he'd pick up 5 students and take them to the Montreal Canadian hockey game. Well, what greater thing is that? You get to go to a Montreal Canadian hockey game, which I did. And he'd get to the game, and he'd tell the 4 others, you go ahead, and we'll be along in a minute, a little bit. And he would stay in the car for another 40 minutes or something, and have his way with that child. And then when the game was over, he'd take us all home and take us to our homes, except the last one. He kept him, he'd pull over to the side of the road and have a little play day with that child. And this went on for an entire year. And he got away with it. I think what I really want to stress is, do you know the damage that does to a person who's trying to figure life out and trying to build relationships, and this happens. That just, I think, this destroys your self-esteem and your ability to make real friendships. I think it really damaged that. And not just for me, but for the whole class. I don't know how many there were, 30, 24, something in between, I don't know. He got away with it. And into the second year, he moved up to grade 7. And so we didn't have him anymore. And he did the same thing with the grade 7 students. They were a little bit older, and they knew to say no. But when you're 11 rather, in grade 5, you don't know. You don't know how to say no. Particularly if you're Canadian. You don't stand up and say, no, that's wrong. You're sort of taught to just get along, get along the best you can. And don't make any waves. It still happens today. Don't make waves. Just go along. Say yes. And I'll just leave that alone. And the next year, they hauled us all off to confession every Friday. Every last Friday of the month, I think. and we had to go and tell the priest all our sins. Well, I didn't even know what sin was, really. I mean, and everyone else in the class was the same way. We made stuff up. I stole some potato chips and a chocolate bar, and I lied to my father once and my mother twice, and I beat up my brother, and I'm really sorry. And the priest would say, okay, well, go and say so many Hail Marys and so many Our Fathers, and you're forgiven. Amen. And that was confession. Oh, my goodness. Hocus pocus. Oh, we played the game. Quite funny. But this one Friday, there was 4 confessionals, and there's one lineup that didn't move. I mean, for an hour, that line didn't move. And then after 2 hours, it still didn't move, and they started to siphon people over to another line. And after three hours, the guy never came out of the confessional. Thought he must have been stuck in there or something. But he confessed. He let it all loose, what happened the previous year. And the next day, the teacher was not to be seen anymore. And a note came from the school board saying, oh, this guy's been doing some bad things, and it's best we just hush it all up and not say anything about it. And just be sure that he's not going to teach in any of our local schools again. That was harmful. He was a sicko, and he had his play day with all of us for an entire year. And nothing was done. No payment was made ever. Nothing was ever spoken about it again. That's bizarro in itself. So I'm sorry for the Indian children that had to come under such a weird system. Although they probably did learn to read and write, which is a good thing, but there's too much gobbledygook, and this wasn't good. The Roman system taught some really funny, strange things. It still does. But I'm going away from the fact that we were abused, mega, and nothing happened, and we got nothing at all. Just carry on. It's not a good system. So the Indian people weren't the only people abused. There's a lot of perverts out there. In fact, there's perverts among the Indians themselves. It's the sinful condition. It happens everywhere. You got to know there were Indian chiefs who had their way with young children, and nothing was said about it. What could you say about it? I mean, he was the chief, and everyone just sort of pretended it wasn't there. A lot of evil in this world. Doesn't matter who you are. It's there. It's around. Okay, that's what I wanted to say. Perhaps just leave it there. I know Canadians are taught. They're really taught not to defend themselves. Back away. Don't really, try to escape, but don't really try to defend yourself. That's sick too. You don't hear people very much standing up and saying, no, that's wrong. That's just wrong. That's not part of our DNA. It's more of compliance. And then we listen to how bad the Americans are in this, and bad in that, and bad in this. And it's just like listening to communist radio in the 1950s. Everything was bad America. And it still goes on today. Only it's the Canadian government saying everything's bad there. I'll tell you this, that if America was not our neighbor, we would have been 100% communists a long time ago. I believe that. As it is now, we're only 75%. But we're working on the last 25 really quickly. So I guess that's a rant, isn't it? I will say this, though. Child perverts are sickos. They're just sickos. And people who murder and people who rape, to me, they should be shot as soon as they're found guilty. If they're guilty, you shoot them. That's just too bad. Particularly on the rape. When you rape a woman and violate her in the deepest possible way, I think you don't deserve to live anymore. I'm sorry. You did damage that's unthinkable, unspeakable. I like to think unbearable, but there are some strong women who manage. But I think they should be just shot. It's a bit harsh, Michael. I don't think so. I think that's the worst crime there is. At least when you get killed, you don't have to relive it. You don't have to have it with you. You're gone. You're dead. You're finished. But if you've been raped, that never goes away. You might learn to deal with it, and more power to you if you can do that. But it's so wrong. And what do you get in Canada? 2 years, 5 years? Well, what is that? What is that? So that's the end of my rant. But in there were some truths. And I wanted to speak them for a long time. I think a lot of our class committed suicide. I'm not sure. I can't say a lot. I don't know all the people anymore. But some did. There was no escape. There was no way out for them, I guess. And they shot themselves. Or killed themselves, or I don't know how, but they're dead. And it just destroys your inner being. And people ought not to do that. It doesn't matter who it is or who you are. It ought not to be done. Well, anyway, I just thought I'd make this because I felt like it. I wanted to do it for a long time. And I was sitting here in the sun, and it's a nice day, and it seemed like the right time. So, thanks for listening. I hope that's of some value to you, and love you all.